Welcome back via Zoom. I'm here with the Executive Director of the United Way of Perth Huron, Ryan Erb. Ryan, thank you for joining me today.
So glad to be here with you, Peter.
So let's talk about the CRC. Tell us what it is and what their function is.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, the Community Renewal Company is a new adventure that we're on here at the United Way. We are incubating or getting started a new program entity for our community that will hopefully build affordable housing and help us to provide better access to services in rural regions by building community hubs.
Yeah, they talk about a community hub. What is that?
Well, in our minds, it is where social services would combine to be in a co-location situation. And that would allow us to provide better service because people could access them more easily. If there's several services in one location, you can see how that's more convenient. But more than that, it reduces stigma because you don't know why people are coming through the door. So different types of social services all together makes it easier and more confidential for people. And we're also wanting to be able to encourage organizations to have available space that they can afford outside of Bradford, where many of them have their head offices.
Now, I know housing or homelessness in general has a correlation between addictions, poverty, and mental health. How can you help in that regard?
Well, there's a lot to be done to help persons who are experiencing homelessness. Not all of them are experiencing other conditions like you've mentioned, but many are. And sometimes the challenge is to make sure that you can help persons with the next step. And if someone has a roof over their head, it's much easier for them to make a step on another challenge they're facing. You can imagine if all you're thinking about is where you're going to sleep tonight, you're probably not going to be too concerned about whether or not you're taking medication, for example. And so people who are experiencing mental illness and maybe would do well to be on medication really need a roof over their heads. And we call that a housing first philosophy, trying to get them housed and then deal with the other issues that they're facing.
Well, housing first was our conversation that I was having with Alex Burgess from Ontario Works just on this February show. So how does, I guess, the CRC work with Ontario Works?
Well, we are partnering with a lot of different organizations, including the City of Stratford Social Services or Ontario Works, because we know that if we're going to build additional affordable units in the region, we're going to need everybody on board. And so there's lots of good activity happening across our region, but we need an organization, which is why we're spearheading the Community Renewal Company, to take the lead. And so accessing government grants takes a lot of time and energy. And so we'll be applying for grants associated with various projects, securing land and opportunities and assets to leverage so that we can have additional affordable housing. It's a long-term goal. We won't see anything, in the next few months, but what we need is more supportive housing, more affordable housing, and more attainable housing in our region so that all segments of housing they need at an affordability rate they can manage.
Ryan, I hear the term the Pillar Nonprofit Network or something like that. What is that, and what's the connection with the CRC?
Pillar Not-for-Profit is an organization in London, and they support nonprofits throughout southwestern Ontario by doing work with them to help them with ideas, innovative ideas they might have to help us move along. And so in this case, Pillar helped us to actually write the feasibility study for the Community Renewal Company and a corresponding business plan. And so they were part and parcel to a year-long effort to understand if, in fact, we were identifying the need correctly and the solution correctly, and then ultimately to convince our Board of Governors to take on the project for the next number of years to lead the way.
I know United Way has a great thing called hashtag unignorable. Now that we can't ignore homelessness and housing in our community, what can the community do to support the CRC in this endeavor?
Well, what we're looking for at this point in time are ideas around where we can build. And so if someone has land available, give me a call. That really is the number one challenge. If we can secure land, and it would have to be gifted to make the balance sheet work on an not-for-profit venture like this, we can get started looking at what the grant possibilities are. We're also looking for partnerships, perhaps with for-profit builders and others who might be doing something and say, look, I want to include an affordable component in my project and meet increasing standards coming from our planning departments in our region. And so we think that there's a niche for us to play in those kinds of partnerships as we move forward as well.
Ryan, thank you to you and your team for leading this initiative and solving a housing issue that we have locally.
You're welcome. Glad to be with you.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Stephen Fisher about the Stratford Tennis Club.